Hi, my name is Cristine Crum, and I am your host for ICAN. ICAN is a show dedicated to providing information to anyone who needs help. Help with what? Help with getting answers on where to go to get help with drug misuse, helping veterans find where they can go to get help, homelessness, and more. Once a month on this channel, we will take an hour to discover just what is really going on in our community. We will have interviews of people who can help and people who need help. We will discover all the stats, figures, and truth or fiction about drug, alcohol, and cigarettes. This is a program for not just adults, but kids too. We are all a part of this community, and we are all in this together. Welcome to ICAN, because I can make a difference, and so can you.
Open our hearts, free every soul. The fear inside, you must let it go. Oh, that monster, before it conquers you. Yeah, we all have demons, we fight every day. You get knocked down, but the bell hasn't rang, so keep going. Just stay focused when life seems hopeless. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You've gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. Nothing can stop you from winning this race, so keep going. Just stay focused. Yeah, I am the tiger, I own the prize. Every storm is with the rainbow in the sky. You are golden. If no one else noticed, don't stop, keep going. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. Oh, you gotta 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 try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. You gotta try.
I think the biggest piece of advice I have for someone going through addiction or thinking about going to rehab is being honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to get help. I think that's the biggest stigma that we're trying to erase is don't be afraid to ask for help.
I would like to introduce my co-host, Emmy Reiner. She's an MPH RN Drug-Free Communities Project Director and Coordinator for Jefferson County Drug-Free Coalition. Emmy has been a godsend to our local Elks drug awareness program. She has brought us a lot of information along with her time and all the other people who are in her organization. We have joined these two groups together to share information and to help those in need of help. The mission of the Jefferson County Drug-Free Coalition is to prevent and reduce alcohol, tobacco, and drug abuse among youth and the greater community through county-wide collaboration. Emmy, can you tell me more about your program?
Yeah, sure will, Chris. Thanks, Chris, for having me on today, and thanks to Watertown TV and to the audience watching. And as Chris said, I'm the coordinator of the Jefferson County Drug-Free Coalition, and so we serve the entire county. And I just want to let you know what my background is. I've been working in the drug prevention field for many years, and even before I became a county health nurse, I worked in the tobacco control and prevention program. So
Cool.
This is something I'm really passionate about, and so I'm really excited to work with you and the Elks Club to bring this monthly program.
Okay.
So I just wanted to mention also that, during our monthly shows, we'll kind of touch on many different topics related to alcohol, tobacco, and drug misuse prevention, because there's just so much to learn. There's so many new things going on and so many partners who are working on this. So we'll try to make sure we highlight all the work that people are doing. But I wanted to also talk to you a little bit about what the Jefferson County Drug-Free Coalition does. And our focus is on prevention of drug use and alcohol use among youth, but that doesn't mean that all the rest of the community members don't have a role in that too.
Right.
So we're always looking at environmental strategies, not just working to make sure that youth are saying no to drugs, that kind of thing, or just relying on parents to provide that education. And just as an example, I would say our business partners are really important, and you might think, well, what do businesses have to do with drug use prevention? But, they really have a big stake in what our youth and our communities are doing. I mean, they serve the public, and we help out businesses. So we have a partnership. And some retailers also sell, alcohol and tobacco products. And so we want to make sure that they're doing right by the community and making sure they check ID, for example, and making
Correct.
sure that young people don't have access to those products through our retailers. And we have obviously law enforcement partners on our coalition too. They help us in so many different ways. I mean, one way is they go into the schools and they provide some of that education early on to make healthy decisions and things like that. And then with parents, we want to inform and empower parents to make the best decisions for their families about alcohol and drug use. So, the research is really showing a lot about how drugs affect the brain in young people as they're developing. And so we want to share about what some of those effects are for our parents so that they can share that with their children. And similarly with our youth, we want to make sure that, they understand the effects of drugs on their brains and on their growing bodies as well. So those are some of the, partners we have. And then, the rest of the people in the community, they have a role to play as well. And I wanted to highlight one thing that everyone can do is take a look in their homes to see if they have expired or unused medications that they're not using anymore, and make sure they take them to the nearest police station and have them disposed of properly, because the last thing we want is to have those medications be misused, or you don't want to be tempted to throw them in the trash or flush them down the toilet, because that's bad for the environment too. So actually October 23rd this month is National Drug Take Back Day.
Cool.
But because we have so many medication drop boxes in Jefferson County, really you can go to all the police stations in the Sheriff's Department.
Watertown Police Department has a drop box right in their lobby.
Okay, good, yeah.
Tell me, Emmy, what made you get into your field that you're in? Why?
Why? Well, I just saw that drug use just affects so many different people. Me personally, but working in this profession, I just saw that, we had, pastors who were part of our coalition, we had youth, parents, healthcare workers, and I just feel that if we can provide some information and resources and advocate for more resources for people, that we can not only prevent substance misuse, but we can also help treat and help people in recovery as well.
Right.
And so I wanted to let you know that we do work on the prevention side, but we kind of work along the continuum too. We want to help people who are in recovery stay in recovery from drug misuse, because there are so many people who are doing that today, and they're really very inspiring. So I think that is what I wanted to talk about, but I really welcome the opportunity to talk more about all the different things that we're doing during our monthly shows here. So
Awesome.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks for being my co-host.
Yeah.
Along with Emmy and her group, the Elks National Drug Awareness Program is the largest volunteer drug awareness program in the United States. We are very proud of our dedicated army of volunteers who freely give their time and talents to those noble causes. They're committed to eliminating the use and abuse of illegal drugs by all members of society, and believe that in order to ensure a bright future for our country, it is essential that our children be raised in a drug-free environment. Together we are bringing information, interviews, and more to ICAN. ICAN will be a monthly show where Emmy and I will interview different people in the field of drug awareness. We'll have videos and share lots of information to help you say, I can. Today's show will be all about the Enrique Camarina Award, given every year across the country to a deserving narcotics officer. Special Agent Camarina was a slain DEA agent murdered by the Mexican drug cartel while investigating drug trafficking in the United States. He was brutally tortured and killed in 1985. His death precipitated the start of the Red Ribbon campaign that we celebrate each year during October in his honor. The Red Ribbon campaign was started by the Camarina family and friends as a tribute to him. However, it also serves as a reminder to all of us about the dangers of substance abuse. This year's award recipient has gone above and beyond the call of duty in pursuit of a drug-free community. In the second half of our show, we will interview our Enrique winner and the officer who nominated. Before that, we will show you a video about Enrique and who he was, what happened to him, and then we will come back. Thank you. Here's the video.
Just recently, an appeals court in Mexico released a drug cartel leader by the name of Rafael Caro Quintero. And this is an affront to justice because this man, drug dealer, was responsible for the murder of numerous people, including a former DEA agent by the name of Enrique Camarina. I'm Manny Medrano. I was the former chief prosecutor responsible for going after the killers of federal DEA agent Enrique Camarina. Enrique Camarina, U.S. citizen, former Marine, former local cop, decided to pursue history and become a DEA agent. And he was such an extraordinary agent, he was assigned to Mexico, in a hotspot, Guadalajara, Mexico, where at the time, the drug cartel, the leading drug cartel in the world, was situated. And it was led by a drug dealer by the name of Rafael Caro Quintero. Agent Camarena served bravely in Mexico, and he did such a phenomenal job that the drug cartel lost over $1 billion worth of cocaine and marijuana seized by law enforcement thanks to the tremendous efforts of Enrique Camarena, DEA agent. So the drug cartel decided to fire back. They conspired, and at the order of Rafael Caro Quintero, Enrique Camarena was kidnapped in broad daylight off the streets of Guadalajara in February 1985. by corrupt cops and drug dealers, and he was taken to a palatial home on the outskirts of Guadalajara. He was put in a room in the back of the house. The walls were about a foot thick to muffle the screams, because there the drug dealers proceeded to torture Enrique Camarina for 36 hours nonstop. And then they murdered him. And the death blow was they got a tire iron and they drove it through the top of his skull, piercing his brain and killing him instantly. Enrique Camarina left behind a wife and 3 young boys. The oldest, Enrique Jr., was 11 years old when he lost his dad. After the murder of Enrique Camarina, they hid the body, and because of tremendous pressure by the United States government, we wanted our agent back. We wanted him back. We wanted the body back. And tremendous pressure was put on the Mexican government by United States officials, and then finally the body turned up 60 miles outside of Guadalajara in an open grave, and that's where they found the body of Enrique Camarina. In the last 5 years, 50, 60,000 people have died because of the drug wars in Mexico. It's an astounding number, a number that is so enormous people, I think, have trouble wrapping their heads around it. You have to understand why this case was so important. Number one, the obvious reason is bringing to justice those people responsible for a murder. But beyond that, there was actually just an important factor or reason, was the American government had to send a message to drug cartel leaders around the world that if you touch a single hair on the head of one of our federal agents, we were going to come after you with everything we had. And that is a powerful, powerful deterrent value in going after the people who were responsible for this murder. To this day, our government has federal drug agents serving around the world in many hotspots, whether it's Peru, Colombia, Mexico. But in those countries, they're not even allowed to carry firearms. They are at the mercy of the drug dealers, which is why it's so important that if they hurt one of our agents, if they have the temerity to kill one of our agents, we have to go after them with everything we have. Otherwise, we're just impotent. We're just a powerless country, and we can't allow that to happen. It pains me to say that as much as I wish that we have Rafael Caro Quintero given to us, the American government, I don't think it's going to happen. Because bribes have been paid, and Rafael Caro Quintero is probably now gone with the wind. We don't know where he is. I'll be amazed if we can find him.
The second half of the show, we'll be interviewing our Enrique Camarina winner. Ben was a military hero. He served in the Army Infantry, completing 5 years of active duty, beginning in 2009. He's stationed in Colorado. During active duty, he completed 2 deployments to Afghanistan and Kuwait, and then continued with the Army National Guard for 4 more years, stationed out of Fond du Lac. He married and had 2 daughters. Ben has been employed with the agency since 2016, and in 2020 he competed for and was chosen for the honor of working as a drug task officer. He was a relatively new officer to be so soon selected. He quickly distinguished himself, however, on the drug task force as a man easily as mature and capable as any officer. After only a year and a half on the task force, he was exhibited showing exceptional self-motivation, dedication, and skill. His rate of success at arresting drug criminals and seizing drugs has been stellar. In addition to that, he has been unusually willing and able to think outside of the box when it comes to making a difference in the drug community problem in our community. For instance, on his own initiative, he seized on the opportunity to make a difference in children's lives by teaming up with Jefferson County Human Services in a fresh, new way. He partnered with them to co-instruct with them, providing training to area law enforcement agencies in the prevention and mitigation of children's exposure to street drugs through the program Children in Crisis. He then extended that partnership with Human Services by including their staff in the drug search warrants that involved children, when he had a reason to suspect that those children were in harm's way of the deadly effects of potent killers such as fentanyl, morphine, or carfentanil. Sorry, how do you say that?
Carfentanil?
Okay, thanks, Emmy. For example, a portion of fentanyl that is almost too small to see with the naked eye can overwhelm the small bodies of children. The U.S. DEA cautions us in this way. Since fentanyl can be ingested orally, inhaled through the nose or mouth, or absorbed through the skin or eyes, any substance suspected to contain fentanyl should be treated with extreme caution, as exposure to a small amount can lead to significant health-related complications, respiratory depression, or death. Ben's initiative has led to the charging of several adults with child neglect, especially when drug testing of the children's hair, imagine that, their hair, you can find the drugs in their hair, has proved that they have been absorbing controlled substance into their bodies over extended periods of time. On one occasion, when Ben's team made an entry into a residential search warrant, a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old were within arm's reach of drug paraphernalia covered in fentanyl residue. On another search, in the baby's crib room, a 4-month-old, Ben located multiple discarded plastic baggies with fentanyl residue. The 5- and 7-year-old who also lived there had to walk through that crib room to get to their bedroom. Amazing. He has spent hundreds of hours investigating multiple drug overdose homicide cases, and in several of those has been instrumental in bringing to justice drug dealers whose sale of illicit street drugs caused the deaths of several people. In addition to the out-of-the-box work that Ben accomplished, he excels with regular drug work. Arresting dealers, seizing the following variety of drugs, large quantities in Watertown, which that's scary. He does not have this, as a sample, cocaine, ecstasy, hallucinogenic mushrooms, marijuana, THC wax, and edibles. And in some of his search warrants have many times resulted in the seizure of drugs in quantities equivalent to $250,000 street value at a time. For all these reasons, Ben deserved this award. In our next half, we will meet him and interview him and another officer who will be coming with him. Anything else for you at this half, Emmy? Anything else you would like
I was just going to say, while it's really sad that we're seeing, some of these drugs come through our communities, I'm really glad there's individuals like Officer Miller and others, who are trying to do something positive to get us in the right direction. And I really think he's very deserving of this award.
Yeah.
And like his captain was saying about him, I think that really out-of-the-box thinking is really needed.
Yeah.
To kind of
out-of-the-box thinking on everything
go against
drug-related.
this issue, because we need every partner, every community member to really help out with this issue.
Well, what's surprising is one of our Elk members, his son is a police officer, and about 2 weeks ago, he made an arrest at 2 o'clock in the morning. He pulled over a woman because her lights weren't on. When he pulled her over, she had tons of fentanyl in her car, $250,000 worth of cash. She had a pill bottle filled with, it looked like regular pills. But it was, when they tested the pills were actually fentanyl to make look like regular pills. So he took that off the street, which is amazing. And
Yeah.
hard to believe that it can happen here in Watertown.
Yeah, so I think what you're talking about is sort of counterfeit pills
Yeah.
that are made to look like
Yep.
prescription
Yep.
pills. So that is something that people do, and it's very dangerous because people think maybe they're prescription medications. But yeah, that's why it's so important to keep track of the prescription medications that you do get from your doctor or provider, and make sure that they don't get taken from you, so that they're not diverted and sold to someone else who they weren't prescribed to.
Right. And with Halloween coming up, that's another thing you should look into. Check your kids' candies carefully, because throughout the years there have been candies that have been made to look like candy but are actually heroin or fentanyl or different drugs, and kids are ingesting them not knowing that it's actually drugs. So keep an eye on your kids' candy. Keep an eye on the different agencies. Talk to the police department if you have a question or if you feel something's not right. What we used to do, when I remembered when we were growing up, they used to actually scan the candy, but I don't think they do that anymore. Because for a while there was pins and razor blades put in the candy, and kids were actually getting hurt.
Yeah, so I mean, if that is a worry for you, I would just recommend maybe going down Main Street or wherever they're giving out trick-or-treating candy, people or just businesses that they're handing out candy to kids. Wouldn't you say? I mean, they probably do that here, don't they?
Yeah.
And is trick-or-treating on the weekend?
I think it's on the 30th, but I'm not sure.
Okay. Because I know in some communities it's right on the day, and sometimes it's the weekend before or the weekend after.
Okay, we'll take a quick break, and then we will be back to interview our officers.
Sounds good.
Hi, welcome back. I'd like to introduce our Enrique winner, Ben Miller, and Captain Brower, who nominated him. And we have some questions for you. Ben, why did you go into law enforcement?
So I joined law enforcement mainly because I wanted to protect and serve the community. I like to help others and such like that. Actually, when I was deciding if I should go law enforcement or not, I had been in the Army for 5 years, and I wanted to either be an officer or a teacher. And then I decided that my Army training was better suited to police work than it was to teaching. So that's why I became a police officer.
Okay, so how did you go towards narcotics?
So I began narcotic work mainly from patrol. I worked third shift here in Watertown, and I noticed how big of a problem it was, mainly with even property crimes and thefts, stuff like that. The nexus, we were dealing with the same people over and over and over and over and over again, and the nexus for all of those things was because of drugs.
Okay.
So someone that's stealing from Walmart usually is either pawning at such to get money, to get drugs. Okay. So we were finding that out, and I felt that becoming a narcotics work would really help. It would be the best place for me to help out the community as a whole.
Okay. Captain Brower, why did you nominate Ben?
Ben's just an excellent officer, just brought a lot of capability, intelligence to our department, and shortly after he started, in fact, he's only been here as a task force officer for a couple of years now. He put in for that position, tested for it, and was selected. It quickly brought all of that capability and intelligence right to that profession. He's just been fantastic at the usual work of drug task force, the undercover, getting the drugs off the streets, making the seizures, arresting the people that are trying to get this stuff further disseminated and make money off it. Getting those people behind bars is very effective at that. But then in addition to that, he worked with Jefferson County in a way that was outside the box thinking. It wasn't just the typical, okay, let's go find the drugs and the bad guys. It was, what can we do to help families? What can we do to help the children that are in crisis? So many times the folks that are involved in this don't realize how much this can be a danger to their family, a danger to their children. Just a small amount of heroin and now fentanyl and carfentanil, it takes just amounts that you can barely see that can be so easily accidentally ingested by children. and kill them. And he was working with that, with Human Services, with their Children in Crisis program, to train officers throughout our area, and then also to bring along Human Services with him when he goes to these warrants and he finds these kids in need of services, and being able to get them the help that they need for those sorts of things, remove them from situations sometimes, educate some other times, and try to make it so that these children are much better protected in the environments that they're finding themselves. They don't choose. Kids don't get to choose these
No,
things.
they don't.
So it's something that he's out of the box thinking and very, very effective at doing.
That's really awesome.
Yeah, sometimes we do forget that there's a lot of people involved, you know, families and children, and if you have your own children, it really brings it close to home. That this is happening in their own families, and so yeah, I appreciate the work that you're doing to kind of think about all the people and who could be affected by this as well, and just to do it in a very humanitarian way, I think is what we're trying to do, is not to create any more problems, you know, by trauma or any other ways, just because it's so disruptive, you know, if a parent or both parents have to, go into some kind of, just get more resources for the help they need, for
And that's
example.
what this show is all about. I know
Yeah.
you both have children.
Mm-hmm.
How do you talk to your children about drugs? Is it any different than a normal parent, or being you have more under the cover information?
Yeah. I have a 2-year-old daughter and then a 12-year-old. So the 2-year-old, obviously, I'm not talking to.
Right.
She can barely say dog and stuff like that right now. So, but the only thing that I really tell my daughter and such is some of the stories that I go to, right? Like I went to, I've been to a house where mom and dad were both overdosed in a car with a baby and such like that. And so I think usually just sharing these stories, not obviously the specifics and exactly what I see, but just sharing some of these stories about how it's ruined people's lives and they go to jail and prison, or people that die constantly from these drugs and such. And so I think that's how I share it, because I don't want to confront my daughter and just try to scare her, because that usually doesn't work in the end. So I just try to share the stories and because she has to make her own choice.
Right, they all do.
Yeah, exactly. So I just want her to be aware of the dangers and the stuff that I see all the time, without getting into too specific. So yeah.
I've got a 20-year-old, an 18-year-old, and a 12-year-old, and kind of a rule of thumb for, I think it can apply to everybody, but especially for law enforcement families, is kind of, if your child is mature enough to ask a question, then they're mature enough to handle the truth.
Mhm.
Yep.
And trying to pull back and hide the reality of life around them isn't effective. It doesn't help them. It doesn't help them make the choices they need to make, like Ben said.
Yeah, I agree.
Mm.
Well, I just want to also add, we read part of the letter that you wrote to nominate Officer Miller of this award, and it is, just so well written, and you did talk about how, Detective Miller has been part of this sort of outside the box sort of task force. I mean, this Children in Crisis team with Human Services, and I'm just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that group.
Like what I'm doing with the.
Yeah.
So in 2019 is when the Jefferson County Human Services, mainly Heidi Girth and Kelly Gonzo, really started this Children in Crisis protocol, and it was signed by all the chiefs and hospitals and schools and principals, and so basically bringing the community together to realize, and it wasn't just about drugs either. It was about children that are at risk for domestic abuse, human trafficking, drugs, a bunch of different stuff. But it was just bringing everyone together and having a protocol in place, because there wasn't really, there was some type of protocols, but there wasn't anything specific. So they did that in 2019, and then when I became a task force officer in 2020, there really wasn't any communication between the task force and Human Services. And I think that it really came from a rumor from years ago that one time the task force was going to do a search warrant, told Human Services, and then got leaked out to the people that they did the search warrant on. And no one ever told me when that happened, so I think it was just a rumor. But so there wasn't really any communication between us and them, and I found that we were working with a lot of families at the same time and together. And so I did one search warrant and that really and I brought human services in on it. And ever since that search warrant, I really built a relationship with those girls, and we've been working a lot more together. So we'll call each other all the time now. They'll call me and be like, hey, if they have something like a child is telling that their parents are doing drugs or something. Before they would have never called us. I wouldn't say never, but they wouldn't have called as easily. And now there's that communication. So, or if I hear a family that's using drugs and maybe there's not enough information for me as a law enforcement officer to do something, such as I usually like a search warrant or an arrest. If I can't do anything, I at least refer it to them so that they can go talk to the children and see if as long as they're safe. Because that's really the main goal. My main goal as a law enforcement officer is to arrest as many people as I can, right? Like at the end of my narcotics career, if I don't care what the number of arrestees is, it's how many people I can help and children I can save, protect. Because I've realized that through doing narcotics work, no matter how much drugs I get off the street, there's always been more. And I think that's been seen since the war on drugs has been occurring, is that no matter how much drugs the DEA or anybody else seizes, there's always more. So how do we solve the drug problem? Is prevention, is to get these kids and younger people to not use the drugs in the first place, because if there's no demand, there won't be a supply.
Right.
So, yeah.
Well, yeah, back to your team. I mean, what a great example of collaboration between, the Drug Task Force and Human Services. I mean, if you're working with the same people, I mean, it just makes so much sense. And in such a short time, too, because you really started working together just, a couple of years ago, or a year or two ago. So,
but I mean, it's easy because it's something that's very important to everyone, right?
Yeah.
Children.
Yes.
It's very important to everyone. So it was very easy to get off the ground because it's something that everyone can support. It's not, you don't have to get buy-in, everyone buys in to keeping children safe.
Exactly.
So it's been really good. We've definitely made a lot of strides. I just went to the National DEC Conference with them from Human Services, and that was a week-long class in Nashville, and that was excellent.
It's Drug Endangered Children,
Yep.
right?
Drug Endangered Children is DEC,
Thank
yes.
you.
DEC.
Yeah, sorry.
Everyone who's in the know knows what
Yes,
DEC means.
yes. Drug Endangered Children. So there was a nice conference, national conference, and they had a bunch of great speakers out there and people that are really leading the charge into this. So that's helped us, and we came back with more motivation. So we're trying to, right now we're kind of in the infancy stage almost. We're trying to get collaboration from the Drug Free Coalition and such like that. So we're reaching out to different people that we hadn't reached out to before. And it's really interesting how we were all doing different parts, but we had never worked together. We all had our own separate, I'm the law, Human Services is Human Services, the DA's office is the DA's office, and now we've really talked out a lot more and are working a lot better together. So.
Wow,
Elks
Elks Club too.
DEA a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
We
yeah.
give a lot of information to different entities, and this is part of the show.
Mm-hmm.
I'm hoping to get people out there to understand what's really going on in their communities.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, this is just great. Thank you so much.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, I mean, you came to our meeting, our Drug Free Coalition meeting this morning, so just more collaboration. And I say, after looking at this letter and all that I'm hearing, I say you should give them a raise. I mean, look, you can put this in your personnel file, and
you have to talk
look at this.
You have to talk to the mayor. He doesn't have the choice on that.
Well, hopefully we'll win the state and the national Elk Award. That'll be nice.
Yeah. if that
Yeah,
happens,
yeah. So,
What do you think we need to do as a community besides information to prevent and reduce alcohol and drug use?
I mean,
My apologies.
no, you're fine. I mean, the biggest thing is, the best thing for me is education, right? Telling parents what to look for. I just went to a class by Join the Movement, which is a human trafficking class, but there was a lot of stuff that was really good for parents out there to know about, what's on your kid's cell phone. Because as a parent, you don't realize the technology that increases and moves around. I think everyone knows that from whenever you're young, your parents don't understand you and they can't keep up with technology that your stuff are doing because they're set in their way. And so that class really helped out a lot with different tips and such to help minimize your kids getting trafficked, because it's not, stuff like that's not what you think it is, or how it's not being done how you think it is. So I forgot what the question was now, but that's where it was.
Education. It's
Education,
a really important
yes.
thing.
What can we do in a community to stop the drugs and alcohol? I think it's education. Just talking to parents, students, kids, and just educating them of what is out there and what is happening and what will happen to you if you do go down this path. Real life stories I've had the opportunity to talk to a lot of people that are in the drug world and have had addictions, but also on the good side, people that have gotten over those, and why does this person get over and this person doesn't, and stuff like that, and just have them tell their story. A lot of times is super impactful when a 20-something-year-old talks about when they were 8 and how they had seen their parents doing and using, and I had to raise like my brother and sister. That's like a super common story, is kids raising kids. And so just the knowledge of it, and there's plenty of services out there at the back end. It's just getting them to those services.
And I know marijuana is not legal here, but it's legal in other states. Have you seen a difference since the marijuana's been
Like increased use, definitely, for sure. I mean, this year we've seized more marijuana than the last like 6 years. It's just super readily available. Because it comes right out of California where it's legal.
And do you think that leads them on to further drug use?
So, you've heard it called like marijuana is a gateway drug.
Yep.
I don't believe that people that smoke marijuana are automatically going to do heroin or crack or meth. But it is a gateway to availability.
Okay.
So if someone is dealing in marijuana, they usually have connections to those harder drugs. So then you're using marijuana and you're like, oh yeah, it's been fine or whatever else. Can I try crack? Who do you go ask for? Like I know when I was in high school, I wouldn't even know how to get it, right? Even if I wanted to do cocaine, I'd be like, I have no idea who to even ask. But if you're buying marijuana and in that illegal activity, it gives you a gateway to someone that knows where to get it. So that's kind of like, to me, what marijuana being a gateway drug is.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Makes more sense. You got some questions?
Yes, so let's think about some fun questions. So, this is a question for both of you, I guess, but, just being in law enforcement, you do see some kind of negative things about society, or you do come across things that are difficult at times. But so what kind of things do you do at the end of the day to just decompress or unwind, or what are some fun things that you do after a hard day?
Me, right now, I like to go deer hunting.
Oh, okay.
So just like being out in the woods, bow hunting is super helpful for me. It lets me decompress after a long day, because a lot of times your mind just keeps on going. And there's been nights where it's been really hard to fall asleep because I'm thinking about the 800 different things that I have to do or that I want to do and such like that. So just being out in the woods and let my mind run, and then, because usually I don't see deer, you don't sit there for 3 hours and see a deer the whole time.
I've done archery, and it's amazing. I've never shot a deer.
Yeah, I haven't either.
But I sat there for hours watching a raccoon eat
Yeah,
the
exactly.
block, and it does give you time to.
Your mind can just get through all the stuff that it has to get through, and then you come home and it's clear. Otherwise, I just like spending time with my family, playing with the 2-year-old, especially because she's so little and she likes to just run around and play.
Yeah, that's a great age.
Is it hard when you come home to separate from what you were doing?
Sometimes, because sometimes you get a big adrenaline rush, or you see something really bad, and you have a really long talk with a person, especially. It's really hard to get your mind back into being with the family and not at work. And especially with the drug work, that's probably the hardest thing for me. Yeah. Because my work is drugs don't just happen 9 to 5. No. So I go in at midnight, I go in at 2 a.m., and we do different things in the evenings and such forth and so on. So it's really difficult to separate work from family. Luckily, I have a really great wife who supports me, because otherwise I wouldn't be able to do this at all. Because there's times, she's just by her home with herself a lot of the nights when I'm out doing other things. So, yeah.
In this day and age, it's really hard being a police officer. It's not like when we were growing up, we looked up to the police officers. How do you deal with that?
I mean, the vast majority of the community is still very pro law enforcement.
Yeah.
So it just seems to be like that 5% from before is now more vocal, I guess is probably the best way to say it. Yes, there's maybe a little bit more less positive sentiments, but overall the community's been very great and very supportive.
So I wanted to ask the same question of Captain Brower too, of just some hobbies you have or some way
For me, it's almost
get
all
away.
family time that really de-stresses me. So being home with the family around a meal, having family night, watching a movie, something like that's a great way to do it. And you're absolutely right that, as Ben was saying, it's tough. It's tough at times to see all this evil that you're presented with for 9 hours a day, and then come home and be able to not bring that with you into the family is a struggle that I think every officer has to deal with. I remember brand new student in school of law enforcement in Minnesota being taught that right away from day one, that you're going to have to find a way to have your police officer cap and leave it outside your house when you get home. Put on your family cap, put on your dad cap, put on your husband cap, and go into the house and be that. And then as you leave and go to work, switch those hats out and become that police officer again. If you can't find a way to do that, to get some baseline level, it really does become difficult for families. I don't think I've done it perfectly throughout my life at all. Times it goes well, and times it doesn't go well. So it's a struggle. So definitely. Great question.
I'm glad that your officers are able to do things that are really rewarding too, so they're not part of all that all the time, but they're able to do that collaborative work that is so rewarding, because that really keeps people motivated and on the job, right? So this is really great. So Captain Brower, you were just talking about this a little bit, but for both of you too, what is the best advice you've ever received that you can think of off the top of your
law
head?
enforcement related. If I could jump in quick, I'll let you.
No, go ahead.
Okay.
No fighting over.
No fighting over answers here. Law enforcement related is the fact that the device is you can't control every situation you're in. And the cops, it's probably what we're called to do, is to control the situation. The reality is people have self-will and they do what they want. And we have to respond to that. We can't control things. But what you can control is yourself in every situation. And if you're at least able to do that much, if I control myself in whatever terrible situation is going on, I have at least a chance, an opportunity to do some good in this situation and help the situation improve. So that was a great piece of advice that I've kept for 20 years of law enforcement.
Yeah.
The best advice I probably ever got was from my father-in-law when I asked him if I could marry his daughter. And he said, he wrote the word listen on my hand. And he said, he's like, always just listen first before you speak. And I really found that to be true. We have a habit of talking too much, especially like law enforcement. Instead of listening to someone's story, we interrupt and be like, no, I don't care about that. Just give me A, B, and C so I know if I have to arrest someone or whatever else. So that's been really good advice, is just listen. And then I've also, my wife hates it because I don't really get stressed out too much about anything. And I learned that from the Army. It's not like anyone told me this advice, it's just something I learned, is that when I was in the military, you're thrown in a lot of situations where you have absolutely no control. And so I just learned, like, if I can't, like, my wife gets stressed about, like if your car gets a flat tire, right? People get like super stressed out about it. I'm like, well, listen, it's not like you could do anything about it. It's not, so just work through the situation. There's no reason to be stressed about it. Like unless it's life or death, I pretty much don't get stressed out about a situation anymore. Unless I had control over it, then I get angry that I was stupid enough to get into this situation or whatever. But I don't get stressed out about situations where I don't have the control about how I got in this situation. So let's just solve a way to get through it, because there's no reason to get stressed out about something that you don't have control over.
Yeah, really good advice. I think, just to be able to stay calm and let's just problem solve. I mean, those are things that we can all do to keep from getting really stressed. But you were saying about law enforcement really taking an active role in listening. I think I see that a lot now, you know, where you just try to get the situation, you get a handle on the situation, you ask the people, you know, what is going on. I feel like I see that as an example of what you do, so that's a really great way to kind of, you know, learn what is happening and not just talking to people. I think that's a really good approach. Is that part of the training also, as far as law enforcement, is the listening?
The old school, my way or the highway, the sergeant walks in and just screams orders and people just drop and do what they want. Now, that's not the way most people in law enforcement, especially in 2021, operate. Most of us are there as helpers. We're going to be there to solve the immediate, you know, physical danger as quickly as we need to. Don't get me wrong, we're not going to walk and do what needs to be done to save life. But then after that, it's time to step back and discuss and talk and figure out solutions to problems with people. Otherwise, they just walk away frustrated and angry that I took over and their problems are the same. There's no real solution here. It's just a quick Band-Aid fix that doesn't solve anything.
When I lived up in Superior, they had a community police academy. Do they have that here?
Yes, we do.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I learned a lot when I did that. It's very helpful, and I think a lot of the community, if they can get involved with it and go through it, it's very interesting.
If I could throw a plug in for that, we
Yes, please
yearly
do.
have a CPA, Citizen Police Academy, and that's been going on since I've been here, so at least 20 years. And every year we train and teach and educate up to maybe, I think, 20 people. Is kind of
Yeah, I
the
think
size
that's
of
what
the
they
group.
had in Superior.
That's fantastic stuff, and they can then leave our mini-week course and go out and teach the rest of the world the truth about what really is going on in law enforcement. That what you're seeing in the 6 o'clock evening news is not, it's just a tiny snippet. It's not the broad view of the reality of law enforcement in America.
Well, we have one last question, and then we have to,
Oh, okay.
our time is almost
Yeah.
up.
Oh, but before you do that one, maybe we can put the website for the police department in Watertown to see where they can.
do that at the end.
Oh, okay, so they can sign up for that. Citizens.
So we can leave it in a funny note. What is the funniest or best thing that ever happened to you while on the job?
Throw this one in the back.
Oh wow.
So I was working about 3 months in narcotics, and we did a search warrant at a house, and then afterwards, so I don't wear a uniform, right? But during the search warrant, like, I put on stuff to identify myself because I don't want someone to shoot me because they think I'm robbing them. But afterwards, I took off my stuff, and all I had on was my badge, just like this, and I had my gun, and I was standing out front of the house, and it was dark out. A guy rides up on a bike, and he basically asked me to sell him drugs.
Oh, wow.
And I was like, and I was only 3 months, so I was like, what do I do? You know, because you always go through scenarios in your head when ever you are about to do something, and that wasn't one of the scenarios that went through my head.
So what did you do?
So I was like, actually, I'm a police officer. I was like, here's my badge. I need you to come over here and talk with me. And then he hopped on his bike and took off, and I tried grabbing him, but I wasn't fast enough because I was still I was just like shell shocked that someone was asking me to sell him drugs, and yeah.
Well, thank you both for being here today. We'll look forward to seeing you on the 25th when we give you your award. And we'll pop up the flyer for your award at the Elks. Thank you both for everything you do for the community, and thank you for being here today. Emmy, anything else?
Yeah, so congratulations, Detective
you.
Miller, and thank you, Captain Brower. And yeah, I just wanted to tell people what we're going to have on the show next month. And since we're coming into the holidays, we thought we would talk about homelessness and housing resources, food insecurity, where people can get, you know, supports in the community for those things. So stay tuned.
Yeah. Thank you again.
Thanks for having us. We really
Yeah.
appreciate
Yeah,
it.
thank you.
you.
It was
Thank you.
really fun. Thank you.
Open our hearts, free every soul. The fear inside, you must let it go. Oh, that monster, before it conquers you. Yeah, we all have demons, we fight every day. You get knocked down, but the bell hasn't rang, so keep going. Just stay focused when life seems hopeless. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You've gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. Never stop dreaming, even awake. Nothing can stop you from winning this race, so keep going. Just stay focused. Yeah, I am the tiger, I own the prize. Every storm is with the rainbow in the sky. You are golden. If no one else noticed, don't stop, keep going. Before life passes you by, you must, like a bird with broken wings always. You gotta reach for the stars. It might seem far. Ooh, don't stop. You gotta try. Oh, 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 you gotta try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. Oh, you gotta 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 try. You gotta try. All you got to do is try. You gotta try.
I think the biggest piece of advice I have for someone going through addiction or thinking about going to rehab is being honest with yourself. Don't be afraid to get help. I think that's the biggest stigma that we're trying to erase is don't be afraid to ask for help.